Are you coming to Europe at all?
Yeah, we're going to go to America and then
Uh-huh.
our master plan.
Right. How long is this going to take?
About a year.
Oh, really? Are you prepared for all this?
Nope. Getting prepared. But,
Does it take a lot out of you when you're touring?
like if I'm touring, yes. If I'm in the studio, it ends up taking a lot out of me. So I'm looking forward to it, so I've been in the studio for a long time.
Uh-huh.
I need to socially interact with people. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Can you tell me who the Pigs are?
It depends on what song you're talking about, but it could be anywhere from, well, for example, in March of the Pigs.
Uh-huh.
I'm referring mainly to anywhere from the media
Uh-huh.
to people I thought were friends that are around me, to the kind of, the issue I was addressing, I think, was the feeling we got when in America we attained a certain level of success. And it's surprising to see all the legions of people around you that start fucking with you.
Uh-huh.
And can't wait to see you fail, hoping that you'll fuck up, ripping you off, trying to use you in some capacity.
Right.
It's also the fact that American media in underground world, you go from being the darlings to, we accidentally started selling some records, so we have to turn our backs on them because it's not cool anymore because people know about it now.
Right. Is that what take the skin and peel it back, doesn't it make you feel better? Is that what that line's about?
Right.
Right. I kind of thought it had a more sinister type of meaning. I think it's only because of the press that I've been reading about where you recorded the LP.
Well, there's that element in there.
Uh-huh.
That's a confusing issue, but thematically, which that line was referring to.
Right.
Thematically, that was the main oppressors I was attacking in that.
Right. And Piggy, the song, that's just like a, I don't know, I kind of took it as just a kind of mournful love song in a way.
That's my standard issue, mournful love song topic.
It's just like a term of affection in that way. Can you, how much of an effect did the Tate House have on the mood of the LP?
I would probably quite a bit. It wasn't a scary place.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I was scared out of my mind the first month I lived there.
Right.
But that was my own mind making me scared.
Did you make yourself stay there?
Yeah, I'm not one to blindly believe in ghosts, that sort of thing. But I do believe there's something there, or was, in the house that was torn down in the last 2 months.
Right.
But if anything, it's more of a sense of sadness and complacency and peacefulness in a calm, strange way.
Uh-huh.
That I didn't get the feeling of being tormented or aggressively interfered with.
Right.
The property is what most people don't realize where that house is. It's up on a hill.
Uh-huh.
And it's completely isolated. And it's the most beautiful view and most serene, kind of above the smog lookout point. That I isolated myself there quite a bit, and I rarely went down to for anything.
Did you live there on your own?
Or
Did you live there?
I had my drummer, who's my assistant, was living in a little small guest house.
Uh-huh.
It was really small as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a small one-floor ranch house. 5 rooms, and it's not big.
Uh-huh.
You know, I think it's misinterpreted as being this gigantic mansion, which is, or wasn't.
Uh-huh. And I guess most of that was taken up by a recording studio as well.
Yeah, the living room was just a big complex.
Right. Is like writing and recording music and writing lyrics a very kind of solitary process? Something that you have to kind of just dig in and do it and not have any distractions?
Right. And that was the main incentive for installing a studio into a house, was just to have an environment where I felt comfortable and it wasn't a laboratory-like hospital environment. It was a recording studio. And just seeing if I would work more efficiently or less efficiently, and I learned a lot from doing that.
What did you?
Yeah, I learned that I don't want to do that again. And that I enjoy going away from place to go to work rather than it being where you live as well.
Right.
And I think knowing that there's a clock running and money being spent motivates me to get things done quicker.
Uh-huh. How long were you in the house?
Just over a year.
Really? Wow. And that's like, was that from the beginning period of you, like, getting first ideas for the LP to finishing it?
Pretty much so, yeah. And actually, to be fair, it was more like almost a year and a half.
Wow.
But that was setting up the studio, learning how it works, and essentially writing all the songs.
Uh-huh.
Well, I mean, I'm not one to say that I am the fastest writer in the world, but one thing that may slow that down is doing everything myself.
Right.
Tends to make things take longer.
Were you teaching yourself more studio techniques that you hadn't?
Yeah, well, I felt a bit
before,
restricted in the sense that I could hear things the way I wanted them to sound, but I didn't have the technical knowledge to get them sounding that way.
Right.
So I'd have to filter that through an engineer with a grab bag. You get great ones sometimes. You know, it's a frustrating experience.
After working on it for so long, how do you feel about it now?
I've tried not to listen to it for a few weeks since I've completed it. And when I did listen to it a couple of days ago. And my own verdict on it is, I like it and I'm proud of it. You know, it's what I wanted to do. I don't know commercially what it's going to do. I don't feel personally that there's any real strong singles on the record. But I think it works well as a collection of songs, as a whole, rather than here's one track from the record kind of thing.
Right.
And I also think it sounds better after a few listens than the first time through. And it's hard for me to be objective to that, but I've gotten that feedback from a lot of people.
Right.
But those end up being the records that I tend to like more in the long run.
Seems to me
the ones that instantly sound great.
there's
I'm justifying. So.
there's a lot more a lot of different textures on the LP than I've heard in your work previously. A lot of kind of acoustic kind of songs and just the way songs seem to cut up and come back again. I don't know. It just seemed it's amazing. I really like the record. It's great. And what kind of musical influences do you? I mean, is there something that's changed in the music since the last project you did? That
in
you
my
could,
influences or in my way I do it?
In the way that you approach the music.
I set out to not redo what I've done already. And at the risk of ruining what might have been good about it in the past. But when I started writing this album, I picked up a guitar like I did with Broken and started writing songs that sounded just like it would have been on that record. And put the guitar back down and turned to the keyboard and computer and wrote the whole record on that, which was more inspiring to me. And I felt that I had a larger palette of tools to choose from. I felt a bit more confident at the guitar when I did incorporate that into the stew. And I felt less restricted. And I tried to make a record that was broader in scope and that went several different directions rather than here's how hard I am. I'm even harder on this song. This song, I'm even tougher. I wanted to try some different things, and then I felt a sense of freedom, like, well, I'll try to do anything. A year ago, I would have been afraid to just put a song like Closer on there, because it's obvious. And it's worst, most obvious disco drum programming, you know. But I feel that I can, felt relieved to be able to do things, you know. When I sit down and write stuff, various things come out, and I felt I didn't need to really censor it into, well, what fits what Nine Inch Nails would do, you know. Turn that into more what I do.
Right.
Influence-wise, I didn't listen to very much stuff that's been coming out recently, but I felt most of it, the stuff that I've heard is fairly uninteresting. And I'm not interested in guitar, bass, drum, Seattle-type sounding bands at all. And I found that whole wave of interest fairly uninspiring to me. But I went back and discovered some records that I'd ignored growing up. A lot of David Bowie's early catalog. Up until Low period. Low was a big influence in this record. And Iggy Pop and Lou Reed, that sort of thing, which may not be that exciting to anybody else, but to me, I hadn't heard a lot of that stuff, and the depth of it stood out to me in a time now where I think a lot of music is so product-oriented, consumer-oriented, video, you know. Like nowadays, if you buy a record and there's 2 good songs, it's worth buying the record for. And labels realize that, and they're looking for that.
Right, they're getting more
smash that will move units and pay their salary.
They're getting more and more desperate as time goes on. When I first heard about the LP, I think I kind of read a quote, or you were quoted as saying it was a cycle of songs. Do you still consider it as a cycle?
Yeah, I mean, the way I set out to write it was something that I found I couldn't execute as I started doing it. And I kind of plotted out a theme and almost like a storyline or an evolution. But then I wanted to plug in, 10 to 14 songs that would fit along this little timeline. And that's fine when you're thinking that idea out on paper, but when it comes to fitting what randomly pops in your head as song ideas into the right mood and the right type of music and the right part of the record, at a certain stage I abandoned that. Then when I looked at the songs when they were done and said, I've done enough, I'm going to stop and listen to the record. And I'd explored, I'd kind of done what I set out to do without consciously trying to do it.
Right.
So I was shooting to make a record that worked as an album rather than just a collection of songs. And I feel I succeeded in that.
Right.
To my own satisfaction.
But there was no conscious thread after you finished it. There was no conscious thread that went through it. Or...
When I finished, I still was kind of trying to adhere to that plan, but I realized at points I jumped off the path, and this song that addresses this issue I thought would be more of a hard-edged song. It turned out to be slow, kind of thing. So it's not the exact thing I set out a year ago to say, I'm predicting I can write 10 songs that are all going to be like this, or fit into this thing. I'll write a song that's hard that has this subject matter that'll fit that part, and things just mutated naturally into what they were going to turn into. The basic theme of the record still comes through to me. It's not the exact same thing that I initially thought I was going to do with it. I'm sure, I think it's better than if I would have tried to make myself, whatever.
You are, would you say your lyrics are like an exorcism of things that have gone in your life, or are you trying to just explore different extremes of emotions, trying to put yourself into a mind state so you can write something that will explore certain things?
It is an exorcism of feeling. I don't know that I'm doing it to get them out of my system as much. I think I am, and I know live it turns into that. But I just came to the realization that the only thing I can really write about with any sort of knowledge or expertise is how I feel about certain things.
Mm-hmm.
That became the stage, the setting for me to start exploring, and I'll base that on my own experience and thinking about certain things, and then I get caught up in that mood of re-experiencing that, which sometimes can then I can make more extreme things and feelings, more desperate feelings based on that.
Right. Do you find it exhilarating, kind of exploring feelings like that?
No, I find it really painful and unpleasant to do.
Uh-huh.
And ultimately rewarding when it's done, but very unpleasant to scrutinize. And certain element of your life or instance in your life is really was a low moment.
Mm-hmm.
Going back and really exploring that moment and remembering how you felt, which then makes you feel that way again.
Uh-huh.
Usually tears open some wounds, kind of, it's not something it's not a mental game I would play with myself. Maybe it's helping me, but I don't know.
Do you feel as if it's helping other people to exercise things, or would you not be
Well, I think my goal as an artist would be put out something that the nicest compliment would be, hey, I relate to that. And it doesn't matter that they relate to what I'm saying or not, and that's why I prefer to not talk about what I mean and lyrics.
Right.
Because it lessens the effect for the person who thought I meant something else. And then,
right.
Oh, fuck, it didn't mean that, so I feel stupid. And I've learned that just from experience of reading interviews with people. I didn't mean that. I meant so. And then you feel kind of stupid. Cheapens the effect. And that, anyways, the point is, I think if I can provide a soundtrack to certain settings in life, or I won't even say me provide that. Music in general, to me, when I hear songs, I usually think of they have very visual connections to me, or I vividly remember being someplace, or hanging out, or doing something, or where I heard that song at, or sometimes I even smell. And I think anybody's music could do that to anybody, really. But that's, if someone says, hey man, I know exactly what you're talking about, or man, I totally feel the same way. Well, I don't know that you do, but I'm glad that it feels like there's something that you can relate to strongly.
Do you think people hold on to music far too much in the same way? They it does become like it reopens memories of things, good things more than bad things.
I mean, I don't know. It does for me. I don't know how other people deal with it. I don't think Nine Inch Nails appeals much to the casual music listener that buys Phil Collins records, enjoys a nice song. But, I'm not one of those people anyway, so I don't know how to, I'm not really interested in catering to them.
Right. Your lyrics seem to refer to either yourself being hurt or you hurting someone else. In a kind of, I don't know, it seems like a reciprocal relationship almost. Is that how you see your relationships with other people?
Yeah. And I think if you look at the bulk of the stuff I put out, I just kind of realized this from looking at stuff. To me, Pretty Hate Machine was me against everything else, trying to find sense in interpersonal relationships or life in general, religion, purpose, but still caring about, still wanting to be those things, still having myself at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Broken, I think, is a much uglier record, even aside from the music. Lyrically, because it's to a point of where all the same things are oppressing you, if not more, but I've lost the sense of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like myself that much. And I didn't when I wrote that record. And I didn't like anything about what I had become, And on this record, there's still an element of that, I think, but it's not quite as ugly a statement. I mean, I think it's a more bleak statement. It's boxing myself into a corner here. That statement refers to the relationship between Broken and Pretty Hate Machine. On this record, there's more of a sense of I am also causing damage to others through my lack of being able to commit to anything really, other than just doing this fucking project forever.
Right.
And the element of I can take advantage of the situation if I'm unchecked.
Right. Have you got an echo on your line?
Let me just click over for 1 second.
Okay. That sounds better. Still there?
Hello?
Hi.
So what was I about to spout off about?
The downward spiral.
So that's about all intelligent thing that I can muster up to say about that.
Right. Okay. Would you ever use, or have you ever used drugs to kill the pain of what you write about?
Definitely. And still do to a certain degree. Knowing that there was a song that didn't make it on the record because it wasn't finished, called "The Beauty of a Drug." That will probably appear somewhere soon.
That's a great title.
If I finish it. And it was, I think, during the course of this record, to kill the pain, I'm looking at several things to blindly try to do that through sex, through religion, through drugs, through hurting people. And to answer this question about drugs, yeah, I think drugs are, they can be misused, and there's some drugs that are just inherently evil.
Mm-hmm.
But one of our favorite things to do in LA was, due to lack of anything else to do, was take mushrooms a lot.
Uh-huh.
I truly enjoy that experience.
It's not really...
It's helped me a lot, actually.
Psychedelics
not
wouldn't...
really in a dulling way.
Right, I was going to say.
And that would be a drug that works the opposite of something like heroin.
Right. Could you ever see yourself be trapped into something like heroin just to numb everything? Or are you too, do you have too much drive to express yourself?
Well, I do kick into self-destruction phases. But I've seen, and I experimented around with heroin this year. Our drummer died last year.
Uh-huh.
And was a junkie the whole time he was in the band. And I didn't realize to the level he was.
Right.
And I think that triggers something in me of self-destruction, of curiosity, whatever. And a good friend of mine here is a rehab person that I've put through rehab twice now. And the whole, I wouldn't see myself on that drug because it's just not, it's too shitty. It's not my scene. It's not, I have no desire to be part of that. And I don't think I could let myself do that anyway. There's still a part of me that likes a little bit of me, enough to not let me flounder.
Right.
That bad.
Are you, there's something that I kind of think about, that when people are like tearing, all torn up inside, or you know, like, using something like heroin to kill the pain, and they can still present a normal face to the world and to everyone else, and act normal. Do you kind of see that around you? Do you do that at all?
I think not through drug use, but just through what's in my head. A lot of times I think I have to be insane to think like this. I'm not normal. I'm out of balance.
Right.
But I don't walk around every day conveying that attitude.
Right.
I was being true to myself, ignored all social standards. I don't know.
Yeah, can I change tack a little?
Sure.
Have you ever messed around with subliminals in your sound?
Yeah.
It seems to me it's kind of like the sound that you produce, the electronic sound, is kind of really deep with kind of electronic noise. I just kind of wondered, sorry, I'll let you continue.
No, we haven't done anything like, hidden speaking behind stuff where you don't hear it, little message tape type stuff.
Right.
But I've experimented on this record quite a bit with the idea of just laying things into the mix, like we have a lot of found samples, a lot of stuff we've taken off movies, not of dialogue, which I find cliched, but of just sounds. Like my assistant's job was to listen to a bunch of movies without watching them, and just if you hear something cool, put it on, throw it on tape.
That's a good idea.
And if you watch it, you can't do it.
Right.
Because you either start paying attention to the movie, or you hear a sound that you know is, a boat going through the water. But if you don't know that's what it is, and you hear it, like, Flood and I did a thing, a little experiment. He goes, check out the sound, what do you think this is? And it sounded like someone tapping on a pie pan. So it's not a very good sound. And he said, that is 300 African children's hands beating on the skin of a dead elephant thing, And then you hear it again, it's like, wow, that's a great sound. But it's the same sound I just said sounded shitty a second ago.
Right.
That same principle works in terms of finding sounds within movies and stuff.
Right.
So, experiment with getting a song up, and if the mood I was wanting was one of tension and just something unpleasant, like in the song The Becoming, I wanted that to sound like a machine that keeps building, and it's just a feeling of something's going to break or something. You want it to stop. And we just laid in some samples of women screaming, and from some unknown source. It could have been some tribal thing that we found, or something off a movie. 3 or 4 different layers of that, and just loud enough that you tune it out after a while because you're listening to the other things that are more interesting. But it still adds this sense of what the fuck is making this so sounding?
Right.
And there's lots of things like that. There's just loops of random noise, things to add a sense of, put it into different space. Like, I stumbled on that by, one time I was so bored, I was mixing a song early on, Pretty Hate Machine days, and I had the TV on just to kind of keep my focus on. The volume was up, and I was still working on this track, and laid the mix down and went in the other room and listened to it to see what it sounded like, and it sounded terrible, and I realized because I didn't hear the TV going. And that TV added a sense of casualness to it. The whole song went to a different space. It didn't sound right without some extraneous thing going on that kind of draws your attention away a little bit, but not. So.
That happened a lot, like adding random things that just happen and pop up and... tape, when I got it, and for Mr. Self-Destruct there's like the lyrics where it says, and I control you. And it just seemed to be so mixed, so deep down into the mix that you could hardly hear it. I didn't even notice until I started reading the lyrics and trying to follow them. I got one last question, then I'll leave you. It's kind of frivolous, but is Big Man with a Big Gun a pain to gangster rap?
Actually, it is.
Really?
The only person in the world that's ever said so. Attacking me for being misogynist the other day. Don't you get it? I mean, that was one big inspiration for that, because I'm just tired of the whole bullshit scene over here. I mean, I'm all up for freedom of expression in that, but it's not a view that I find that's appealing to myself. Musically, I think it's interesting, but what's being said, I tire of quite quickly.
It's kind of funny, they had Snoop Doggy Dogg on TV over here. There's a big thing about Snoop Dogg, and they got, like, the tabloid press are trying to throw him out. They put this thing on the front page of the tabloid press saying, throw this evil rapper out, and saying how he's, like, condoning killing cops and beating women and shit like that. And they had him on this show called The Word, which is this just really tacky youth program, and he started talking about, Benny Hill.
Yeah.
He just started talking about how he loved Benny Hill and just describing all these different skits, and it was just so surreal watching Snoop Dogg talk about Benny Hill on TV. It seemed kind of sweet, but kind of bizarre. Well,
is he big shit over there now?
Snoop Dogg?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's just been hyped. I mean, he doesn't get, I don't know if he gets that much radio play, but it's not as, rap is never as big over here as it is in the States. But, it's pretty big. It's done pretty well considering what it is, I guess. But, yeah, he's big for a week. And they threw him out of his hotel for smoking pot and, usual kind of rock and roll type things.
The usual.
Well, thanks all right, Trent.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing you live when you come over
when we get over there.
All right.
Pick me up if you can.
Okay, that'd be cool.
See you later.
Thanks. Bye.
Tired of that fucking box. Back here every day.
So, why did you decide to start? Nothing.
Well, it was presented when we got our new deal in America with Interscope Records. And we got kind of freed of the burden of TVT, which was really stifling. I probably went through all this before with you. Part of the new deal was the ability to sign other acts to what would be a label, but basically a shell. So, basically it gave me the ability to go out and find acts or sign other acts and provide them with a protective barrier to where the benefits to them is it's like being on a major label like we are, decent budget, an adequate budget, the ability to maybe do a video or two, and tour support, and mainly distribution, without the inevitable downfalls of being told what to do and not being allowed to express yourself the way you want to, because I know what that's like from TVT, and it sucks. Mm-hmm. So I've approached it with kind of in a conservative manner, where I'm aware that I'm basically investing other people's money into things that I believe in, and I'm just going to keep it small until it can be under control enough to know. Because in the midst of doing 9 Inch Nails, it takes every bit of my energy. I realize just from signing a few other acts, the amount of work that I'm not doing the day-to-day calling up manager stuff, but then I'll go through the bands we have on the roster as to the amount of time spent, like Coil, or putting out their stuff in America, simply because in America everything's an import, and it costs 2 or 3 times as much. Talking to Peter about that they don't have the budgets to do videos, and that's a crime. They've done some of the coolest videos I've ever seen.
You're going to put out their back catalog stuff as well?
We're trying to get that too, just to have a way where, the way I look at it for them is, I don't want to turn them into a big top 40 band, and I don't think they ever would anyway. That's definitely not my desire. It's basically just so that in America, you might know that they've got a record coming out. There might be an ad in a magazine. You can buy it for the same price you can buy Rage Against the Machine album, and knock a little money loose for them to do some videos, and, try to combat the terrible video syndrome that seems to have swept the world. And just give them a chance to get some stuff out of it. And not get fucked with.
How did you hook up with Peter Christopherson to start with?
I'd always liked some old Coil videos, Coil. Excuse me. And been a fan of Coil a lot. More so than Throbbing Gristle, just because I kind of latched onto them after they'd already disbanded. Anyway, we ended up using him to do a couple videos. Hit it off as friends, and this made sense at one point when the label thing came up. I presented it to him, and he seemed interested in it. Someone whose work I respect a lot.
You identify at all with any of the stuff that they deal with?
To some degree.
Magic.
Yeah, I'm interested in it. I don't practice it. I am interested in what they're all about, though, and I think on an artistic level, I respect a lot what they do. So the ability to maybe, help them out in some capacity, and that's a situation where very little effort is involved. It's just, they give us a record when it's done, or they will give us a record because we haven't done anything yet, but basic coordination. On the other hand, a similar situation with Pop Elite itself. We're distributing them in America, where in America you might have heard the name, but they've never sold it.
Got a kind of underground following, I guess. I don't know.
Nothing like it is here, though.
Right.
And that I have to blame on their old label, because you literally would not have any idea a record's coming out, and it's the last thing in the rack, and it's no media attention, and kind of misplaced on a couple tours. We opened for EMF on a tour. Those guys need the shit kicked out of them. I'm really blowing my nose. Anyway, that's another scenario where basically they do a record and then we put it out. And they are into advice just from an American perspective, they think that'd be a good single, and I've always liked Pop Elite itself. And I'm not trying to go for a label that's establishing any sort of genre of music, I don't want to sign 20 bands that all sound like 9 Inch Nails or like Coil or like whatever, but it's basically just stuff that I think is unique and interesting. And if I see an act or an artist that, and I'm not trying to compete with every fucking major label to sign bands, and it's basically if something comes across my world and I see a band that has a vision and could benefit from the situation I can provide, which is being left alone to do what you want to do. I don't really want to hold someone's hand and be a record label guy, because I hate record label guys, you know. So, if I can share a fortunate situation that I'm in, that's cool. Another band, Marilyn Manson, is a band I signed out of Florida, who had opened for us in a few tours we did in clubs, and kind of like a rock band, very theatrical in their image, and really cool lyrics, and a really weird kind of attitude that's bathed in satanic imagery and child molestation, but tongue-in-cheek, kind of like the back room of the carnival. And great guys, and ended up actually producing that record for the most part. And that was one that sucked time and time and time and time. So he was doing that at the same time I was doing Downward Spiral, and they finished at the same time. But when we got it done, we had a little snag with Interscope, because they had just come under a lot of heat about the Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg stuff. And we're starting to get a little conservative, and now here's a band of 5 skinny white kids from Florida that can't hide behind the political correctness of, censorship or racism. And I think their message was a bit misinterpreted by, if you just sat and read the lyrics, you might be a little offended if you were a parent or something, you know. But they started fucking around with me a little bit, and I just said, we're not changing anything, so this is the album, or I'll take it somewhere else and put it out. After a few months delay, it ends up just going to come out.
Cool.
So, that's good. They just opened for us in the American part of the tour. My involvement in that is greater one, but it doesn't sound anything like Nine Inch Nails. It's fun for me to work on something other than fucking Nine Inch Nails for one. Another band called Trust Obey that's going to start recording soon. They super hard, remotely Godflesh oriented in that world. Doesn't really sound like them, but hard edge, sludgy, electronic bass, noisier, early Swans reminiscent, but with really good lyrics. Not a great commercial potential for them, but that's not why I signed them. Instead, they're a cool band. In America, the label seems kind of dismal, with Nirvana taking off, and the whole 70s rock band thing, Alice in Chains, all this kind of Soundgarden stuff. Everyone's focused back in that world, and the indie labels have all been eaten up by big labels now. And Wax Trax has taken a shit, and they've turned into a ghost of what they once were. Some half-baked techno shit, and a few good bands still on. And they got absorbed by TBT, my arch enemies in life. So that's a weird little twist of fate. But anyway, there's not many avenues for independent, or electronic bands, or anything that's kind of unusual that doesn't sound like a 70s rock band, or a jangly guitar band, or a bad hip-hop thing, or death metal nonsense.
What do you think, like, further down the road, if you have success with a lot of bands, would you prefer to go independent?
I was on an independent label, and it sucked. And I think most people think independent label equals small budget, small distribution, but total artistic freedom and better taste. Big label equals big budgets, big distribution, big machine behind you, but the price you pay is your freedom, and you start to have people fucking with your art a little bit. Well, I had the worst of both worlds, where no budgets, no support, no nothing, and being fucked with artistically on an independent label. And I know a lot of other people on various other independent labels that, yeah, we do what we want, but we can't get paid, accounting's always wrong. It's not, I think there's a bit of a fault, not that there aren't good ones, but I think generally there's a bit of misinformation about, it's not as cut and dried as good and bad.
Right.
With major labels, the same thing. I mean, major labels notoriously have bad taste. And so I think what they realized in the last 5 years since the alternative has become the mainstream and knocked out the Bon Jovis and the Warrants and the Poison and all that shit, but replaced it with Pearl Jams and Smashing Pumpkins and the next wave of REO Speedwagon bands, you know.
Do you not think you have enough power as an artist to set up your own label and go through independent distribution?
I could, but I've got the machinery in place to do it without having to do that.
Right.
And if I can keep my overhead down to a core of 5 or 6 people that can concentrate on finding good bands, working with the bands, rather than calling up distributors begging to get paid for the last thing that they went out. And that's a lot of what that is, a fucking headache trying to get paid from your distributors who are last on the list below Warner Brothers and everybody else. And if I've got that machinery in place and I can control it to the point where I can focus on, I have the resources of my own people at my label, and my own publicist, and my own marketing guy, and my own person that talks to band managers and coordinates things. But we also have all the people at Interscope who are about the best in the major label world, who also handle that shit on another level, and we make sure they understand, okay, Coil is not 9 Inch Nails, so it's inappropriate to market it the way you would, say, 9 Inch Nails, or who else? Four Non Blondes is on fucking Interscope. You don't want to try to put Coil baseball hats with pins and free bumper stickers, you know, it's not the right thing for them. And that seems obvious to you and me. To them, it's another band, and you have to assume that everybody doesn't have any idea about anything tasteful, even though a lot of them do. And say, this is a band that would be appropriate to put a full-page ad in Option, maybe, or maybe advertise on the appropriate channels, you know, because I assume they don't know it, so we make sure they understand, you know, the appropriate budget for a Coil record would be based on what we think they might sell, so that at the end of the day, everybody makes some money out of the deal, everybody gets a record out, you know, everyone, you know, I can say Coil needs a $5 million budget for their album, and that will be exactly one record they'll ever get to do, because, you know what I mean? The downside of getting big budgets is it's your money you're paying for your budget with. So if you don't ever sell enough records to offset that, you never ever get a penny for it, which leads to your own unhappiness eventually. If you got a choice of working for 6 months in a $3,000 a day studio in LA, or doing it cost effectively and maybe being able to pay rent for the next year. I'm just approaching it logically rather than, you know, and I'm trying to find people that, you know, that we've lost a few bands that I've gone after because another major label will hear that I'm trying to sign them, then they'll come in and double the money. And I'm not going to go to Interscope and say, okay, I want to get band X that I think is a cool band, and they need fucking $500,000 for their budget to compete with fucking Columbia, you know, who are desperately trying to suck up anything with credibility because their roster is Duran Duran, I don't know, I mean Columbia, but you know, there's a lot of dinosaur major labels now that who's on the top of the charts, Pantera, 9 Inch Nails, Soundgarden, what do we have? Whitney Houston, you know what I mean, our alternative act is the Crash Test Dummies, which, you know what I mean.
Are you interested in kind of pursuing people in techno field at all? Does that interest you in any way? There's a lot of stuff on the new LP that sounds, some of the music sounds similar to the kind of really forward-thinking technos coming out of England, like Jungle, really, really fast beats, really, really hard, and really dark as well.
To be quite honest, when house music reared its face several years ago, and it being so based in club culture, which nowhere I've ever lived was any place that was really happening, and you'd find out someone read the face and saw, oh, there's a thing called a rave, and that's where you wear these clothes, and I guess you take drugs that we don't even have here yet, and listen to this music, and then you'd see, oh, it's rave night, or it's house night at this club, and it's the same fucking people that are there every other night, only they're pretending they're in a different social climate based on false media reports from something that's already dead in London where it might have started, or Chicago, or wherever the fuck that shit came from. And I kind of got a bad taste in my mouth as far as the insincerity of the whole American version, like American punk rock scene based on something that probably didn't even really happen at the time, you know what I mean? And 3 years later, fucking Black Flag pretending they're doing something new.
Yeah, I kind of remember seeing details talking about the rave scene in LA, like, you know, like 3 or 4 years after it happened.
Right.
Supposedly over here. But I mean, there's stuff I don't think about. I don't know if you heard Future Sound of London?
No, I've heard of that stuff, but I don't listen.
They're not interested in kind of remixing club culture or anything. They're kind of producing electronic music that's like, it's really dark, it's really strange. It's
right.
kind of dealing with really kind of difficult themes.
If you get a
alienation and
to jot down some of the best of that world, I'd like to check it out. But my point I was leading to was house music I found incredibly uninteresting, and setting that precedent of every song sounds a variation on this real simple form.
right.
Okay. As that led to Acid House, which was more interesting to me because of its more experimental, less traditional kind of, at least from what I come across. Some of the shit Psychic TV was verging into. This is kind of interesting melding now of experimentation and club culture. And as that mutated into techno and whatever it turned into, from my perspective, it could be historically incorrect here. And the first stuff I heard of techno, I thought, this is pretty interesting, you know. It's back to simple but yet interesting use of electronic stuff, you know. And then as that became the new template for everyone to rip off, and here's what a techno song is. Between these 2 beats per minute, use this thing to make a bass line out of it, find a couple gimmicky samples, and interesting, but the amount of it that was good to me versus just shit was like hearing the fucking Sesame Street theme. That's when I knew I'm not wrong in my judgment of this music as being shitty, you know? Like, there's a station that was in LA for about 6 months. It was all techno. So it was interesting because it just bombarded you with, it was more interesting than anything else on the radio. And, but ultimately, maybe because I'm entering into it knowing how easy it is to write that kind of stuff, because it's the same equipment I use.
Right.
And I'm not trying to sound like lofty, you know, I'm a professional programmer, and I would never do it. Not like that, but just, I like the idea. I had a lot of debates with, actually Rick Rubin, who's a guy from American Record. A good friend of mine, and he went on a super techno blowout. He's Mr. Johnny Cash and Tate, more of a rock and roll guy, and he would always come over to my house and start playing stuff, and signed a lot of stuff, Digital Orgasm and a bunch of other.
Yeah, Messiah. I used to go to college with them.
Really?
Yeah, real fucking.
But he was just fucking out of his mind going on about this, and I keep listening to it thinking, or not, what do I say? Yeah, I kind of see what you mean, but you know, it's like, it's just something I never was that thrilled by. And lately, like, I've lost interest in it and focusing on some other things, and kind of longed for the good old days of when Wax Trax was in its heyday, and it was less club culture oriented and more nastier, meaner kind of stuff. And as all the bands in the Skinny Puppy, Ministry, 242, us a little bit genre, split off into either techno-y or metal, nothing kind of stayed where I thought it was the coolest, you know. Not that it should stay there, but stuff like Apex Twin I think is cool. But, what I've heard of the Orb seems pretty cool. But,
It seems like when I go to clubs, I end up feeling like really kind of alienated. You know, it's like the music's pretty alienating in itself, and then everyone takes drugs, and there's no way anyone can really deal with anyone else on an actual kind of real level.
Right.
You know, they all think they're communicating with each other, and they're not. They're just communicating on a really superficial level. I know it seems like a lot of the music is made for that in a way.
I feel that way. I don't know if
I mean, I think there's people like Apex Twin and also Future Sound of London who are like producing the stuff that's really interesting because they're dealing with emotions within the music in a way.
But I first admit, somewhat uneducated on that whole scene. You know, I lost interest, especially when I went to LA. The clubs are so shitty out there that I just quit going out. You know, rather than let that seep into my head and start showing up in my music, I'd rather just, you know, see what pops out from some different world of inspiration. And this was uninteresting to me. And to be somewhere and you're 10 years older than everybody else there, and wasn't my scene.
Are you going to be doing any more videos with Peter Christopherson?
Yeah, we're thinking about a couple things right now.
Was there some stuff that didn't ever get released from Broken?
Yeah, we did with Broken we had made a video for Opinion, we made a video for Wish, Happiness and Slavery, and Happiness and Slavery's band, obviously. And I wanted to do something for Gave Up, which was the thing I liked the most on that record. I don't think anyone else in the world has listened that far into it. So I talked to Peter about, I wouldn't mind putting out a full-length video thing, but I don't want to just fucking put 4 videos, a little backstage bullshit. And, you know, I said, think about some way we could incorporate these into something that's beyond just being a few videos. And he came back and he and Jeff had come up with an idea of filming some stuff that would run in between the videos that connected it all. And without saying too much, it had to do with the abduction of somebody, forcing them to watch the videos, and then simulating what they saw in the videos, doing it to this guy. A lot of it was filmed on video to give it slightly reminiscent of a Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer kind of vibe.
Right.
What part of town are we in right now?
We just come past Camden.
Oh, really? The market is back there or around here somewhere?
I saw I met Rob and Steve who do Substance. They had a small snatch of
A little bit of
some of that stuff. Yeah, the guy falling out the trapdoor with the noose around his
No,
neck.
that's the mild
really?
stuff. And then that led up to the video for Gave Up, which is the last thing.
Right.
And Peter shows up, because they filmed most of it in London, and he came over and edited it here, or in LA. And he said, don't worry, we can always take some of this out, you know. So when I finally started seeing what we were dealing with, it was like the goriest, most realistic looking. Oh my God. Like, Peter, you totally outdone yourself on this one, man. But fucking cool looking, you know, and being into like horror movies and gore films and just the whole. This one was like some of the elements of Henry Serial Killer times 20 in terms of realism. And just fucking interesting to do it. And I thought, and he's like, well, what are we gonna do with this fucking thing? Because, you know, this is pretty intense. So we finished it. I said, let's just do it to where it's exciting for us, and then see what we can do in terms of the responsibility of selling it, or what we can do to edit some of it, if we even want to. We finished it, and we looked at each other and was like, we did it. And like, it bummed people out that saw it. It was disturbing it. And I said, let's just think about what we want to do. And, you know, and a week later we called each other and said, you know, let's just set it on the shelf for now. Because, I mean, it would have also brought the focus of 9 Inch Nails gimmick. It would have been interpreted as I'm trying to outdo myself. I'm in the Tate house. I'm blah, 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 blah. I'm putting a murder movie out. It's like, because it's like a snuff film looking thing. And I just thought, I don't need that right now. I don't need people. Everything I do is fucking accused of being contrived, or I'm so tired of fucking British press. Oh, he's just relying on a formula. No one could feel this way. He's fuck you. You know what I mean? Fuck you. And so we said let's just sit on it for a while. Peter was afraid of legal ramifications of it being filmed, where it was filmed.
Right.
And it's pretty intense. So I got that sitting at home. Someday it'll do better. It's interesting. It's just I try to then be objective and say, does Nine Inch Nails need this kind of publicity right now? No. Is it a cool thing? I think it's cool. But I think a bit desensitized to what probably the American normal joke, would consider offensive. Because I consider that offensive. So it was out there. Offensive but interesting. And it's the kind of thing that I'd want to see if there, So that's the story on that. Peter's filming tonight and tomorrow here, just to kind of document this leg of the tour. Someday he might put something out live if it turns out with shit.